It is Thursday, February 8th, and the Splash Zone is back in your life. I'm Matt Modi with my 3 favorite NBA player props for tonight's NBA betting slate. I will admit it took a little bit more digging than usual to find today's bangers, but I absolutely love the 3 that we have today. And also happy NBA trade deadline, everybody. Before I can give you today's picks, I unfortunately have to give you a recap from yesterday, which was brutal. I just got my hiney teeth kicked in yesterday. Just a terrible day from me yesterday. I'm not going to hide behind it. I'm going to just talk to you about when I have these types of days. On my 3 NBA player props, we did not get any of those 3 to cash. Donovan Mitchell, we had him over 6.5 assists. He went into the fourth quarter with 5 assists. The game was close. He ended the game with 5 assists. That was an L. Trae Young, we had him to make 4 or more 3-pointers. He had 2 in the first half. Then he missed all of his attempts in the second half, missing, I think, over 5 straight 3-point attempts at one point. That was an L. Then I had De'Aaron Fox over 26.5 points. Didn't even come close in a game in which the Kings got smacked by the Pistons. Just a bad night. That happens. Luckily, we had been on fire prior to that, so we are still up. Even with yesterday's loss, we are still up over 4 units in the month of February, like 4.77 units to be exact in the month of February, which is very good. At least we're still up for the month. And then on the entire season, we have built up a ton of profit. We could survive like 10 more of those types of days and still be profitable on the entire season. Obviously, today we're going to get back on our winning ways, but it's nice to have built up this much of a cachet of profit on the entire season. We are up 47.75 units with an ROI of 27.13%. So yesterday's 0-3 day, obviously not great, but we're still up over 27% ROI on the year, which is phenomenal. If you're new to my channel, A, thank God you were able to miss yesterday, and B, I would recommend subscribing, so that way when we go on our next heater, you can be along for the ride. And then, of course, for this specific video, if you can comment. I do love hearing from everybody. Even if you have mean things to say to me after yesterday, totally fine. Liking, commenting, I love all that stuff. And let's get into it. Let's get wet. First play that we're going to go ahead and lock in here is in the Timberwolves versus Bucks game. And I'm taking Giannis under 7.5 assists, -125 odds. This is at DraftKings. As I mentioned, it was a tough slate finding plays. I love this Giannis under, and I love all 3 plays that we have today. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend if we have a bad day that, oh, the board just sucked. No, none of that crap. If you give out a pick, stand by it. That's my official analysis. But anyways, about this Giannis play. So he's cashed this in 6 of his last 10 games and in 2 of his last 3. So if you're just looking by recent results, you're like, hey, he seems to be doing pretty well. Well, A, I love fading recent results. And B, you got to look into that in a little bit more detail, right? For starters, Giannis went on a pretty big tear, pretty nice playmaking tear, whatever you want to call it, towards the end of January, where he had cashed it in 5 straight games. Since then, he's only cashed it in 2 of 6 games, 5 of which were coached by Doc Rivers. So Doc has coached the last 5 games for the Bucks. Giannis has gone over this in 2, and he's missed it in 3. What I like about it, if you drill in even more, is that in the 2 games that he went over, he was able to just beef up against really bad defenses, right? He played in a 2-game stretch, back-to-back games. The Mavericks and the Jazz, 2 defenses that you want to target for big men like Giannis, especially for playmaking as well, for assists. In those 2 games, Giannis had a combined 23 assists with 10 against the Mavs and 13 against the Jazz. In the other 3 games with Doc Rivers as his coach, he didn't even come close, right? He had 4, and 6 assists in the other 3 games. And even if you go back to the other game he missed before Doc Rivers took over, he had 4 assists in that game as well. So to me, it seems like he's fattening up against bad defenses, which is absolutely not the case with this matchup tonight against the Timberwolves. This is the polar opposite of fattening up against a tough defense. The Timberwolves, by almost every metric, are the best defense in the NBA. Best defensive net rating in the NBA. They allow the fewest points per game in the NBA as well, and they allow the second fewest opponent assists per game as well. Now, digging into this a little bit deeper, according to Courtside Pal, the Timberwolves allow the 11th fewest assists per game to someone of Giannis's playmaking style and the 5th fewest assists per game to someone of his shooting profile. So admittedly, if you're looking at Courtside Pal, it doesn't list this as like literally the toughest metric, the toughest matchup in the NBA, but still pretty tough. And also for this game, no Chris Middleton. That's a tough pull-up or a shooter that Giannis can kick out to that won't be playing. Dame's questionable. Brook Lopez is questionable. Two guys that he would probably give up a lot of assists for. And even if both Dame and Brook Lopez end up playing, they're going to be banged up. And this just has the makings of a game in which Giannis tries to take on more of a scoring load than a playmaking load. So I think his assist opportunities are going to be few and far between just because of the matchup. And I think because of the way he's going to play, that's going to be the case as well. So minus 125 odds. I generally look for plus money bangers, but today, as I mentioned, the slate was a little bit gross, so I had to widen what I was looking for a little bit. But I really like this play. So again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was just forcing picks, because that's not what I'm doing. I love this play. I love this next one. We're actually sticking in the same game here. Timberwolves versus Bucks, and I'm taking Anthony Edwards over 26.5 assists, or excuse me, 26.5 points. 26.5 and 6 would be crazy. 26.5 points. Also at minus 125 odds. This one's at ESPN Bet. So for this game, this time we're sticking with an over. Now, I normally, if it plays at minus 125, I'll try to pump it up, especially with a point prop to get better odds. This is actually the best value on the board for Anthony Edwards, right? Over 26.5, we're taking at minus 125. Other books that price this, like Bet Rivers, had this all the way up in the minus 140s. And every other book prices this number, not only at 27.5 or above, but they don't even give you 27.5 for plus money, right? A lot of times, if you take a higher point total, you can get it for plus money. That's not the case here. So our options were over 26.5 at minus 125 odds, or over 27.5 still at minus money. So the best value here was on the 26.5, which is why that's what I went with. In terms of the actual matchup, I love this play. We've talked about it all year. You want to target your guards against the Bucks. Now, normally that leads to point guards, right? That high usage rate point guards, which obviously isn't the case with Anthony Edwards, but he still does have the highest usage rate on the Timberwolves by far, right? He's got a usage rate of 32.42%. The next highest in the Timberwolves is Karl Anthony Towns, a full 5% lower at the 27th percentile in terms of usage rate. And the logic for wanting to take your guards against the Bucks applies to Anthony Edwards. It's because of the style of defense that the Bucks play and are continuing to play under Doc Rivers, who played the same style with Joel Embiid as a center. They play drop coverage on the pick and roll, which means they protect the paint. So if you run a pick and roll with Anthony Edwards and whoever Brook Lopez is guarding, which would probably be pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, instead of Brook Lopez going up on that screen to try and sway away Anthony Edwards from taking a shot, they'll drop Brook Lopez and protect the paint. What that means is it leaves a lot of open pull-up jump shot opportunities. And Anthony Edwards takes the 8th highest pull-up shot attempts per game in the entire NBA, right? He's a very good pull-up shooter. And the Bucks play pretty low drop coverage. Some defenses played a little bit better, like the Celtics. They still play drop coverage, but higher. The Bucks play it really low, which means they can just get smoked by guys like Anthony Edwards who can pull up off the pick and roll. So keep with this thought in mind, right? The Bucks are giving up the 2nd most points per game to someone of Anthony Edwards' shooting profile, the 7th most points per game to someone of his scoring profile, and the 4th most according to his playmaking style. Again, this is per Courtside Pal, showing this as a pretty juicy matchup across the board for Anthony Edwards. He has been playing well recently. He's cashed this in 2 straight games, actually scoring 30 plus in both of those games as well. So let's hope that he can continue his hot streak, come through for us, getting us at least to 27 points. That's our second play. Third and final pick of the evening in the Warriors versus Pacers game. We're taking Jonathan Kuminga over 21.5 points, plus 115 odds at ESPN Bet. And this is my favorite play of the board by far. If you only choose one play for today, this one is my absolute favorite. Despite the fact that we're getting it for plus money odds and the other one are for minus money, this is my favorite play. Again, I like all three. I'm tracking all three. But if you just want to take one play, if you're doing like a ladder challenge or something like that, this is my favorite one. I'm also going to take Kuminga up to 25 plus points as well. I'm putting a half unit on that at plus 185 odds. I didn't get my ladder plays to cash yesterday, but I had cashed 2 in a row. I've cashed both of Mondays and Tuesdays ladder plays heading into yesterday. For ladder plays, I give them out. I don't track them officially. I only track the official play you see on the screen here, but I like to tell people when I am laddering a play. I might honestly take him to 30 plus as well. I have not done that yet, so I would say follow me on Twitter at my handle you see here, and I'll post what I decide to do. But anyways, about the play itself. Kuminga has been on fire recently, and as his playing time has increased, he has rewarded Steve Kerr and the Warriors by playing really, really well. And I think we're getting a good price on this, right? Like 21.5 for plus money, or 20.5 if you want to be safer for minus money. I think we're getting a good price on that because he went under yesterday. He only scored 18 points, but in that game he scored he played fewer than 30 minutes, and that was because the Warriors blew out the Sixers, right? Like, he played less than 30 minutes in that game yesterday. In the past 6 games, he had played 30 or more minutes. So as his playing time has increased, as I mentioned, he's also been playing well, rewarding that playing time for Steve Kerr. In the last 10 games, some of which in that 10-game span he did cash this while playing less than 30 minutes. But anyways, in the last 10 games, he has cashed this over. In 7 of those 10 games, missing it last game that I mentioned against the Sixers. That was also a weird game. The Warriors put up their lowest point total in a quarter in the first quarter. So just a weird game in general. And then one other game he missed in this 10-game stretch was in the game against the Hawks, where Steph Curry exploded for over 60 points and had 38 shot attempts. Yeah, Steph Curry's obviously going to get his, but 38 shot attempts is absurd. Now, there is some concern that the Warriors are going to trade Kuminga. A, if that does happen, we're just going to get that refunded, so no harm, no foul there. And B, and I know I'm doing that a lot, I actually don't think he's going to get traded. He's one of their best young pieces. I think it's more likely that they trade someone like Wiggins to allow more playing time to Kuminga. And the reason why I like this play, A, because of how good he's been playing and all that stuff. Also, the matchup against the Pacers, right? We've targeted the Pacers defense with forwards who attack the rim all year. And that's what Kuminga has been doing well. He's been attacking the rim with ferocity. And that's where the Pacers defense is the weakest, right? They allow the most points per game in the paint in the entire NBA. And they allow over a full point more than the second highest team. Unsurprisingly, Props.Cash lists the Pacers as the best matchup in the NBA when you're talking about power forward point props. I like looking at Props.Cash because not only do they look at how many points a defense gives up to a position, but they also compare that to what a player's over-under is, right? Like if they're going up against Giannis, if he scores 32 points, that sounds like a good game. If his over-under is 34.5, that would still be an under, and that would not count as a good play according to like Props.Cash and all their metrics. So that's why I like looking at that. And again, Props.Cash lists the Pacers as the best matchup in the NBA for power forward point props. According to Courtside Pal, the Pacers give up the 11th most points per game to someone of both Kuminga's shooting and scoring profile. So that's still relatively a plus matchup. But you have to keep in mind that his role has changed over the course of the year. So how he has been playing at the beginning of the year is different than how he's playing now. So this is one of those rare times where I actually don't put a ton of stock into his shooting and scoring profile according to Courtside Pal, just because his role has changed. So I love this Jonathan Kuminga one. Again, it's my favorite play of the day. And that's all we got. 3 bangers for you guys to lock in. Make sure to like the video, comment, and then subscribe. And the last thing I'll say, I mention it at the end of every video. If you're new, I do have a Dub Club. It's only $5 a month. I'm not trying to sell you a VIP picks package or anything like that. Everything that you see here on YouTube, I give out on Dub Club. It's $5 a month, with the logic being, if you want my plays texted to you, so you don't want to watch the videos, you don't care about the analysis, or you just want the plays texted to you immediately so you don't have to worry about the odds changing, that's why I have the Dub Club. Again, everything you get on Dub Club for $5 a month, you can get on free for YouTube. So however you want it, it's completely fine with me. I just like giving people the option. And again, that's all we got. So appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.